Welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, coming to you every week from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful ice of the Galactic Empire. Join your hosts, John Mark Tolley, Garrett K. Jones, and Brian Karasik, as they discuss the various facets of the saga's lore, characters, review the films, and discuss every tidbit of news coming out of Lucasfilm. And remember, this isn't just my Star Wars, this isn't just your Star Wars, this is our Star Wars.
Hello. Hello there.
General Kenobi.
Oh, how are you guys today? Welcome, of course, to War of the Stars, the Star Wars podcast. As the man just said in the opening there.
He's a very wise man.
Handsome, too.
And, as the t-shirt says...
Oh, nice.
I mean, it's on a t-shirt. It's official.
It's got to be true.
You know, you can just buy those, I think. I'm not sure there's any sort of a qualification.
No. That it's on a t-shirt.
No fair. How come mine says second best dad?
Wait, you guys are getting shirts?
Well, good to see you guys
Speaking
again.
of which, you can get t-shirts.
Night.
You can get the official brand t-shirts at our Spreadshirt store. Just go check it out. Link will be in the description. All that crap, whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, cool. Everybody have a good Mother's Day.
We did. We were gonna go to Texas Roadhouse with my biological mom and grandpa and my mother-in-law, the whole family. But then we were in town getting some plants for my wife's garden, and we saw how packed it was there then, and we're like, ugh, Mother's Day is gonna be even worse. And they only do take reservations for up to 6, and we had 8. So we just decided to switch plans, and we got some steaks and grilled out, and
Nice.
got some ribeyes and grilled, and
Nice.
everyone brought little bit of stuff, and
We went a little hoitier and toitier. The Nordstrom in our area has a little bistro restaurant, and they did a Mother's Day brunch where like you had to make reservations ahead of time, and so it was all like pre-feeks, whatever. I can't say it,
Prefix.
but thank you. A pre-generated menu of stuff and flowers for the moms, and so my wife and daughter and mother all met out there for brunch. It was great.
Oh,
That's cool.
that was nice.
Yeah,
I did create a gift for my daughter that her stuffed animals got for her collectively. So she got a little card that was signed with a bunch of little paws. Because she's her Stuffy's mom.
Of course.
Yeah,
Mom's got a $1,000 coffee maker, so we're doing great.
the $1,000 coffee maker, does it grow the beans and then farm them for her?
No, those are actually cheaper. This one, it's a KitchenAid, and like it grinds the beans it's all one unit. Grinds the beans, heats the water. You can tell it whether you want a cappuccino, latte, flat white, like all kinds of different combinations. And
Wow,
it's pretty neat. It's something she's had her eye on for a while, and it replaced three other components on our countertop. So I'm pleased to narrow down. We've been together for 20 odd years at this point, so there are no surprises. I'm just like, so what are we getting you for Mother's Day?
I'm at that point too. Yeah.
I mean,
my wife has got the point that she just told her the brilliant. Well, I don't mean that sarcastically, but literally brilliant idea, because I'm horrible at giving gifts, and my wife is very much puts a lot of thought into the gifts that she gets. So gives people, so she expects the same in return. And I'm a guy, and I don't sometimes think like that. So she's like, "Here's Amazon. Here's my Amazon wish list. Buy something from here. This is everything I want. Buy something from here."
Yeah, you can't risk a surprise, you guys. Like, especially like when you're in your 50s and have been together for 20 plus years, like the gifts should be a fair dollar amount. And by that point, like if I'm going to spend a couple $100 on something, I don't want it to be something I think she'll like.
Yeah.
Also, she sees the bills. Like, there's what's the surprise? Like, what's this $300 from Nordstrom? Oh, that's that dress I got you. You got this dress? Okay, maybe you should shop. So,
yeah, I think
anyway,
one of the best.
It's a much better system.
One of the best gifts I ever got from my ex-wife was in 2015. When the tickets went on sale for Celebration in Anaheim.
Mhm.
I bought 3 tickets for me, her, and her daughter, and that was her early Mother's Day gift. Because she's as much of a
That
Star
would
Wars
not
fan
go
as I am.
over well in my household.
Yeah. The best
Well-
best one I got for my wife, but we'll get to the topic. My wife is a huge football fan, and I got her tickets to Soldier Field to see the Chicago Bears one year. And
Bears.
the Bears. We were the top row. It was the middle of November, and it was freezing. It's Chicago, and it's on the lake, and we had 20 layers on, and we're still.
I mean, it snowed in April when I was there for celebration. I can't imagine September.
Yeah, well, November. It was middle November.
Oh, November.
Oh dear God!
Football
Why?
is a cruel sport.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be outside that time of year?
All right.
Well, here in November, it's still like 80 degrees, so it's hard to say. So anyway, we're talking about the gift that keeps on giving. We're talking about Thrawn.
Admiral Member-Berries.
Grand Admiral Member-Berries.
Sorry.
Thank you very much. He's one of the highest ranking non-humans or near humans in all of Star Wars Imperial lore.
Yes. Yes.
But only because Timothy Zahn says so.
Nothing but respect for Zahn and his characters. I gotta love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really got to. You're not allowed to be a Star Wars fan and not like Thrawn.
I mean,
We had a lot to
Are we
say about-
talking?
we did.
Are we talking EU? Let's start with EU Thrawn because they are 2 distinct characters.
Okay. Are we talking like new canon or legends? When you say EU, do you mean
What-
legends?
Legends.
Yeah,
I mean,
Legends.
Yeah, we'll talk. We'll start with Legends.
I think the thing that makes for me, I've been thinking about this for a while since we since last week, and I was thinking about what we're going to talk about when we talk about Thrawn. Is I think the thing that made Thrawn such a compelling character initially was the fact that we had him for so short a time. He was I mean, technically, if you want to say 5 books, but really only 3. He's in the Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command. And then he dies at the end of Last Command, and he kind of comes back in the Hand of Thrawn duology, but not really. That's more of just like, the idea of him. So I think that's one thing that kind of helped build the myth of Thrawn was he was in 3 books, and then that's it. But yet his presence was so much. It was, and I think he almost also helps when we get to the new canon. It's almost like it's better if he's just a threat, an idea.
the best villains in fiction are generally presented in a you don't get enough to get bored of them. I just had to Google this, but at episode 4, Darth Vader is on screen for 8 minutes and 6 seconds.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That is a small amount of a movie time, and Hannibal Lecter, 16 minutes. So
Yeah.
that's,
Look at the Emperor.
Yes, look at the Emperor.
Yeah.
He's so bad.
Don't
He's
stoke the fandom on that one, Mark.
He's the villain of things he's not even in.
Exactly.
Episode 4, Solo, Andor, like all of these things, the Emperor is a presence. He's extant in the universe, and most plot decisions based on it. We'll come back to the Palpatine episode, but yeah, I think you're right. With the brief time we had with him, he's a vivid character, and I like the Legends. I thought the Ysalamiri thing was a bit much. Like, why is it like every time we get a good a post Jedi villain, they've got to have something that like renders the Force useless against them, whether it's the Yuuzhan Vong just not existing in the Force, or Admiral Thrawn having it felt a little bit. It was a little.
I think it was because that was the first time that something like that had been done. So I think I can give it a pass because we hadn't really seen something like that before in the books. Because remember that was the first post Jedi book.
Sure.
So we hadn't seen something like that.
It's challenging to me, and we see I think we saw that more in Legends than in current canon. But like they come up with an idea that is cool. Okay, Ysalamiri. Oh, this guy's got something that makes the Force work less against him. All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, now we got to do that again in 4 different books for some in other ways, and it reminds me in new canon. It reminds me of, and I guess they did this somewhat in the old canon too, but it's like we can't have a storyline that doesn't involve Jedi, but this story takes place after the Jedi Purge. So so we'll just have this one Jedi who escaped, and then you do that again and again and again in the comics and the video games, and again and again, and sooner or later it's like. It's like the only Jedi who died in the Purge are the ones we see on screen die. Like all the rest of them just like disappeared.
Yeah.
And you know, the uniqueness of the concept is taken away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like Thrawn's adherence to military protocols. I think that's cool. And I mentioned Hannibal Lecter. I think there's a significant overlap in the fandom of Thrawn and Lecter, in that he is erudite, he is educated. He's not just, as I say, a mustache twirling villain tying Polly Pureheart to the train tracks.
Yeah.
He identifies with his targets. He studies their art. That's his big thing, right? He's like learn about a people's art. You learn about the people, and it's very well presented. I gotta say, I'm a little bit itchy about Thrawn in Legends because he does overlap, as we see there, with the Yuuzhan Vong, which I think was the worst aspect of the post Jedi.
I mean, not really, because the Vong were like almost 15, 20 years after Thrawn.
True, but
Hand of Thrawn.
The books dealing with the Yuuzhan Vong came out around the same time. While canonically or legendarily they were set, 15 years later or so. Thrawn's Thrawn story arc. And the timing of the releases overlap.
Yeah, there was like early 90s when the Thrawn books came out. And I'm not sure when the
let me check.
I'm going to say 1994, and I say that because everything about the Yuuzhan Vong is so 90s. It's like they come from the planet.
I think it was like late 90s. It might have been because it was after I graduated.
Well, I'm looking. They were introduced.
Closest one wins without going over.
1999 through 2003.
Rats. Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Even so, I maintain that an animated series about the Yuuzhan Vong would only exclusively voice them with Skeet Ulrich and Fairuza Balk. That's how 90s they are.
Yeah.
And a couple of the Eastern European actors who were in one of the Blade movies.
Yes, I'll give you that. Yeah. That's absolutely. Yeah. Now, you guys are D&D guys to some extent, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I like to call the Yuuzhan Vong Space Githyanki because they have a lot of the same aesthetic.
Yeah, I never want the. I feel
you guys are you familiar with the Githyanki? I feel like I didn't get the reaction I was expecting.
No.
All right, I'm finding a picture. Picture.
Hold on.
Carry on. This is quality podcast content.
It is.
This is what you pay the good money for.
I'm stopping my screen, so you're good to go.
Yeah.
All right.
I can see a reflection of whatever you got on your screen in the window behind you.
Yeah.
But I can barely see it.
We're like,
all right. The question is this a D&D species or is it the Yuuzhan Vong?
Yes.
Yes. They're very similar.
I'm going to go with option E. These are a bunch of Hollywood rejects.
It's a really cool race in D&D, and anybody who...
these are the Kardashians.
Kardashians, almost.
No, not
anyway,
Kardashians.
We can do another whole chapter on everything I hate about the Yuuzhan Vong, but I really liked the aspects that we saw. We talked about this a little bit yesterday or last week with the Imperial Remnant, but I really liked the aspects that we saw of the Empire post-Empire, where they're like, this is all we know how to do. So they just keep doing
the one thing that I remember from reading the original Timothy Zahn novels that kind of gets to me Thrawn as a character and how he differed from other Imperial admirals and officers and people that were at that. There's a scene where one of the crew of the Chimera makes a mistake. He loses something or something happens, and everyone on the bridge just gets dead silent because they remember what Vader did. And Thrawn just doesn't do anything. He says, like, you'll get them next time. And then walks away. And it's like, that is the difference between Thrawn and... Yeah. But there's also another time where he like someone makes mistakes and he does brutally, execute somebody because of the mistake. So it's all about knowing when to put the hammer down for him and knowing when to just back off and let them learn from their mistake. And
the learning curve is pretty steep aboard the Executor. I think we can all agree on that.
Yeah.
You failed me for the last time. This was the first time, even so.
Well...
Yeah,
and that is, it's funny that now that I think about it, that's a good insight into a real military organization, because the actual military allows for mistakes. Perfection is not expected; it's hoped for, but it's not expected. And if you make a mistake, so long as you learn from it, you're generally fine. Now that again is up to a point. Like at some point, there's like, okay, so this is a mistake you shouldn't have had to learn not to make.
Yeah.
Buckley. Sorry, got a particular guy in mind on that one.
I do think that in the new canon, I know we're kind of jumping back and forth between Legends and new canon. I do think they really overplayed the art thing with him in the new canon. Like, especially if you see him in Rebels, that's like his whole thing is just looking at art, whereas in Legends, it was like that was part of the process of how he was able to. Right. It was just one part of the whole. Whereas, like in the Legends, that's his whole thing.
Are you guys familiar with the literary concept of Flanderization?
Yeah, where you make the character deliberately obnoxious, like Ned Flanders.
Right.
Yeah.
And also more specifically, you focus on one aspect of the character until that's all the character is. Because Ned Flanders was religious, but he wasn't a religious freak who I wouldn't say freak, but he was a man of faith.
He wasn't a zealot.
Right. Exactly. And I think that they did that with Thrawn a little bit. And Disney, they're like, well, name 3 things about Thrawn? And now those are the only 3 things about Thrawn.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting for me is like my first experience with Thrawn was in middle school or early high school, where I rented from the library can't remember if it was on cassette or CD, but an audio recording of Dark Force Rising, which is the second book in the Thrawn trilogy.
I had the first one on audiobook. Yeah.
I had that book in paperback because my grandfather gave it to me because he knew I liked Star Wars and he didn't know it was part of a trilogy of books.
Who can tell?
He just gave it to me. It does say book 2 of 3, but
Grandpa's not reading that deep
Star
into
Wars. Bless his heart, he liked westerns and war movies because he fought in World War II.
He's Grandpa, I get it.
Yeah. So, but he bought the book for me. It was, for me, just trying to get into the book was really hard because like it didn't grab my attention right away, which is weird because most Star Wars stuff usually does. But then I started listening to the audiobook while reading through it, and like it's weird because like Thrawn does show up in that book, but he's not a central player in the book nearly as much as all the other characters. And so and it was weird because the book was narrated by Anthony Daniels, so all I was hearing was C-3PO, and I'm like, dear God in heaven, why?
See the first book, because I had the first book on cassette, and it was actually narrated, at least the one I had was narrated by Wedge.
Oh, cool.
So it's funny you mentioned that. I listened to Cobalt Squadron, the audiobook, which is narrated by Kelly Marie Tran.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Kelly Marie Tran is a great actress. I liked her work. I think she got a bad deal.
Absolutely.
She is not a voice actress. So in that book, every character sounds like Rose, and I just couldn't follow it. There's too much dialogue in it where everybody sounds the same. Conversely, you listen to some of the other ones, like, let's see, Dark Disciple is narrated by, I think, Mark Thompson. Yes, Mark Thompson. And he is a gifted voice actor and has narrated probably 70 to 80% of the Star Wars novels out there. Although I will say his Anakin owes a lot to Jesse Pinkman. I will say that. But regardless,
is he constantly yelling bitch at everybody?
No, not to the language, but just the intonation, the timbre of his voice. You should check it out. It's a great book, audiobook or written, but definitely Mark has definitely been watching some Breaking Bad as he's recording that. But be that as it may, Garrett and I were talking about that before we started recording, where he's not in a lot of the book, but he as a character, especially, Thrawn is to Timothy Zahn as Ahsoka Tano is to Dave Filoni. If that character is on screen, it's going to suck all the oxygen out of the room, and that is who this book is about, even if it's just this chapter. And I don't mind that, because Thrawn is an interesting character and he's well written in Legends. But Zahn is definitely telling the story of Admiral Thrawn, and this novel has been written to prop that story up. That's my take on it.
Yeah.
I feel much the same way about the Darth Plagueis novel being written to tell the story of Palpatine. Darth Plagueis is not the most interesting character in his own novel.
And I do like the fact that, at least in the Legends, as far as I can remember, the main character, like Luke and Leia, and there's never like that one-on-one confrontation where they're in the same room with Thrawn. Thrawn's always somewhere else, manipulating things. And so that they never ever really, the good guys never actually see the villain, as far as I know.
That makes sense. It's not like in G.I. Joe where every week they fight directly against Cobra Commander. Like he's right there on the field. Like, why aren't you running this show from behind the scenes? I do think, and I touched on this a little bit with Thrawn last week, but I want to touch on the problem I had with Thrawn, and I would love to hear from you guys and also from anyone in the audience out there. Their thoughts on this, because I've not heard this position posited. Thrawn is in the new canon. Just to briefly sum up the first book in the Thrawn trilogy from the new canon, we meet Thrawn barefoot and unarmed, deserted on an outpost. While barefoot, he assaults a military base. He hacks into their comms after defeating 2 stormtroopers, again unarmed. He allows himself to be captured, and his penalty is to be taken directly to the Emperor, where he receives an assignment to the most prestigious Imperial Navy Academy in the galaxy. And he receives an assistant, and he is promoted to lieutenant before he starts classes. And to me, that is not the disciplinary action I would expect against who could only be perceived as a rebel force. Like this guy took. I would expect Palpatine to kill him and everyone at that outpost who let him get away with that nonsense. But no. In the second book, though, in the first book, I can forgive that. It's fun to watch. He's a good character, and I grouse about it, but it's good-natured. Throughout that first novel, every chapter, he learns something in the first chapter that is essential to solving a problem at the end of that chapter, and he's the only one who can do it. It's a little Harry Potterish by the end of the novel, but we're not here to watch the protagonist of this novel fail. I get it. It's okay with me. Not that nobody needs my permission. But the second book, I'm a Vader guy. And one thing I don't like about Thrawn, we see this a lot in the Empire, where success in the Empire relies on how much the Emperor likes you or people think the Emperor likes you. Mm-hmm. And Zahn plays a lot on Vader's insecurity in the second novel, because there's a lot of Thrawn-Vader head-to-head. And Thrawn just dunks on him constantly throughout that novel. While, most unforgivably, Thrawn is aboard the Executor. He is a guest on Vader's ship. Oh, wait, sorry. The other way around. Vader is on the Chimera. He instructs Thrawn that no one is to come aboard his shuttle. And Thrawn says that's not going to happen. And Vader says, "Yuh-huh," and Thrawn says, "Nuh-uh," and they go back and forth a little bit like that. And Thrawn's security detail breaks into Vader's ship and downloads all of its files and scans it for security threats. Now, this is someone directly disobeying Darth Vader in front of Darth Vader's troops. And all Vader does is just fiddle with his lightsaber on his belt menacingly, which, 2-3 times you do that and you don't light it up and it stops being so menacing. Mm-hmm. And that's what I couldn't get past in that novel, was Thrawn just relentlessly disrespecting Vader, disobeying Vader, countermanding Vader, and Vader just ooh, next time.
Yeah, it feels very much like it feels very much like Starscream getting completely trounced by say Soundwave or Shockwave,
right,
in front of Megatron.
Right.
It's one thing for Megatron to do it. It's another for another Decepticon to do it to Starscream.
Right. He's Starscream's second in command. Even if he does have that silly voice, let's show him a little respect, guys.
What's wrong with Starscream's voice?
Speaking of Cobra Commander, same guy. That was a good one.
It's funny that it's funny that you mentioned that though, Brian, because there's a similar dynamic in
hold on a second. I gotta continue.
Okay, there's a similar dynamic in the Shadows of the Empire, the Legends story that takes place in between the events of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, that kind of explains how Leia gets her Bouche costume and why Chewbacca's hair looks a little bit different, and it shows Luke constructing his lightsaber and stuff like that. So it fills in some of those gaps. And Prince Shizor, who is this Phaline underworld boss for the Black Sun organization, he is doing everything he can to supplant Vader as Palpatine's right hand. He's having audiences with Palpatine because he's trying to broker all these trade agreements, because he does have some legitimate businesses, but he is not a military person per se, but he has that experience with leading troops because of the forces, the mercenary forces that he has at his beck and call. But what's interesting is that he constantly is having these moments. There's actually a confrontation in Palpatine's throne room on Coruscant where Shizor is just shooting barb after barb, and Vader is kind of taking the bait, and eventually it gets to the point where Shizor is actively trying to kill Luke, and Vader from his flagship says, "Shizor, stand down or I will kill you." And unlike this Thrawn story where Disney has basically emasculated Vader beyond what Palpatine has ever done, Vader actually takes action and shoots down Prince Shizor's skyhook above Coruscant. And the Emperor and the Empire and their propaganda machine write it off as, oh, it was a rebel attack.
Naturally.
Of course.
So
even that though, I feel like Vader offering the either or of that decision seems out of character.
Well, it's because he was under orders from Palpatine not to kill.
Oh, okay, fair enough then.
And so he was giving Shizor a way out that left him because Vader later goes and has an audience with Palpatine, and Palpatine's like, "You killed him." He's like, "He gave me no other option." And Palpatine's like,
I just have a hard time when, in order to make a character powerful, we have to neuter existing characters.
Right. Well, in Shadows of the Empire, though, they don't neuter Vader to raise up Shizor. Shizor is trying to neuter Vader, and it blows up in his face.
I did where
it's in a way it's the it's almost what I like to call the Worf syndrome. In the Next Generation, if you wanted to see how powerful the alien was, you have them beat up Worf.
And over time, the force of that is that Worf just always gets beat up.
Yeah. Yeah, if you want to see how
And
powerful a Star
rightfully
Wars
so.
villain is, you have them stand up to Vader and have Vader be able to not do anything or something similar.
Now, what I really liked, where Thrawn really got me, was in the Rebels series when they introduced him. I was dubious. I was like, all right, fine, it's a Mickelson. Like, just add Mickelson, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But for me, the pivotal moment for Thrawn in Rebels is when he is inspecting the speeder bike factory that has had a disproportionate number of failures. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, folks at home, this is a conscripted factory producing speeder bikes, and the rate of failure of these speeder bikes, where they just explode in use, is statistically significant, and Thrawn is there to find out why. He suspects that there is sabotage going on by rebel sympathizers who are producing bad speeder bikes in order to hinder the Empire's efficacy. And so what does he do? He has the QA guy sit on a speeder bike and power it up until it explodes. And that's cold-blooded. And for a kid's cartoon, especially like you don't see the explosion, but you see that it exploded. And this guy's friends and family watch him tearfully climb on a bike he knows is going to blow, and Thrawn's just like, I will kill. If I remember right, he said, "You do it, or everyone here dies," or so to that effect.
Yeah.
He's leveraged into it.
What I like about that delivery too is the fact that it creates a necessary amount of tension in because instead of just doing like the very cold-hearted, twirly mustachioed, type villain, very, Cobra Commander-esque, he actually is very subtle about it. He's like, he doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't yell, he doesn't scream, he's not menacing, he's not like overly animated in his menacing.
He's not mad, he's disciplined.
Yeah, which is 1,000 times worse, right?
Yeah.
So he presents the options of, you can either do things my way or you can do things my way. There's no other way to go around it. And it creates more menace, it creates more tension from a storytelling perspective, because now you've got this character who is stuck, and the only option they have is either and they're weighing that option of the good of the many versus outweighs the good of the one. And so,
I would even say he adds an extra wrinkle of, you can do this my way and maybe die, or everyone dies and someone else will do it my way. Either way. And I liked him as a villain in that moment. He was he was a little bit much with let this bad commander fail, as I mentioned last week, in that I think for a couple episodes of Rebels, Thrawn does more damage to the Empire than Ghost Squadron does, because he's letting, oh no, wait, we'll see what happens, and two bad commanders end up losing a ship or whatever, and then Thrawn just gets to say, haha, told you so.
Yeah, but at the same time though, we don't see it, I don't know how often it happens in the United States military, but think about how if you've got bad commanders who should not be in command, they should be sitting some kind of desk job somewhere, regardless of their rank. It's the smart tactician who lets them get hanged by their own petard.
Yeah.
Not to the extent of losing an aircraft carrier.
Oh.
Well, if you're the Emperor, you don't care, because it's not about the credits. It's not about the military force.
Right. Yeah. We'll just hollow out another planet and build some more.
I do appreciate the fact that I think in Legends there is this kind of idea of Thrawn, and to even more of an extent the actual captain of the Chimera, Pelion, of being the honorable Imperials. Like, they weren't the evil, type that you see. Whereas in Rebels, Thrawn is evil. There's no ifs, ands about it. Thrawn is evil.
For sure.
So you get more. Yes, he's not like you said, not the mustache twirling villain, but in many ways he's even more terrifying because he is so cold and calculating, and I do think, like, we talked a little bit about it with the Thrawn trilogy, but when you get to the first mention of Thrawn in live action, I think that's where he gets even like that was kind of my favorite version of Thrawn besides the and Rebels was I'm not talking about in Ahsoka, but the Thrawn that you never saw, the Thrawn that you just hear about, and it's just kind of this existential threat. You know, those are the type of villains. The type of villains I don't like are the uber powerful, you know, like you mentioned the using Vong, where they're just completely unstoppable and but then they're stopped by some sort of Deus Ex Machina that happens to come in and just be like, oh, we didn't see this.
That's the problem with a villain like that. When you make a villain that's all powerful, now you have to create an all powerful Deus Ex Machina to finish it off.
Yeah.
And if it's
I
not
think
Luke Skywalker, it's some other thing.
It's Ezra Bridger. And
yeah.
it's Space Whales.
Get me started.
The only exception to that rule in sci-fi, and I think it goes back to using them sparingly, was the Borg. In the original, the Borg were all powerful. Well, nothing could stop them. But what made them so terrifying was they were always the existential threat. They were in just like a couple of episodes, a few episodes of Next Gen, but they're always so terrifying. But once you got into Voyager, they eventually just kind of lost their teeth, and they just became another.
The Borg are almost Lovecraftian in that their desire to end your civilization is not based in anything other than logistics. They're like, we just need your resources. We're not mad at you. We don't have anything against you. It's just we're gonna need that planet, so get out. And I think that's a great aspect of them.
But yeah, I'm not sure how I felt about Thrawn though. When we get to Ahsoka, like he makes some really, really stupid mistakes that are very un-Thrawn-like.
Think about this: you have people who are writing for Star Wars right now who have no cognizance about like actual tactician mindsets. They don't have any understanding of how things like that should work. Like if if you're writing for one of the most well thought and frightening tacticians, you should have someone smart writing it.
Yeah. Well, like I remember when they finally get to the planet and Thrawn knows they're there and he sees where they're at. I think he sends like one or two TIE fighters out after them instead of sending an entire squadron to just level the area to make sure, okay, we got these guys. They're dead.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, if there's some kind of like offhanded comment about the resources behind it, because I mean they've been out there for years, without the resources to replenish. That's true, yeah. That could have been a factor, but it's never explicitly stated. There's nothing about it. It's just they're just assuming the audience is clever enough to figure it out, which most audiences should be. But at the same time, you've got people who are writing the show for, they're writing it without any real understanding of the character and what makes him tick. They're throwing him out there because of, as Brian said, Grand Admiral Member-Berries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because basically for me, Thrawn got the Daredevil treatment from She-Hulk in Ahsoka. So like for the entire run of She-Hulk, you get Daredevil being pitched as going to be like this really awesome epic sequence of action in this otherwise meager and muddling comedy. And when we finally get him, you can hardly see it. It's overly done in CGI. The choreography is dumb, and he's turned into a walk of shame joke at the very end of the episode. Mm-hmm. That's it. And then, whereas with Thrawn, they keep pitching about how dangerous he's going to be, that he's going to be this major threat in Ahsoka. That was one of the things that they were banking on because of all the people who either, like us, read the books and were familiar with the lore or watched Rebels. And then they finally bring him in, and he makes dumb tactical mistakes.
Yeah.
Which I think canonically he had never done before.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah, in Legends, his big mistake was over trusting the Rook and the rest of the Noghri, and not realizing that, it was Rook realizing that Thrawn had been using him and his people, and this is how he dies. Is Rook literally stabs him in the back.
Right. Because he thinks this character has feared him long enough to not do anything to him, and it comes to the point where Rook no longer is afraid of Thrawn or any threats that Thrawn makes, and he's willing to do what is necessary to end the threat.
That's a species we need to talk about sometime, is the Noghri, because they're one of my favorite things to come out of the Thrawn trilogy were the Noghri, because they were just terrifying. Like some of the stories you hear about them in the Thrawn trilogies, they're just like, yeah.
There's something else that leaves me a bad taste in that first Thrawn novel in the new canon. When he's at that audience with the Emperor, Palpatine is like trying to get him to swear loyalty to the Empire so he doesn't get killed. Like I'd let you live if if I knew I could, you were on my side. And Thrawn just won't do it. He's like, well, for the time being, and now mutual benefit type thing. All Palpatine wants is an oath of fealty. Thrawn won't do it, and Palpatine's like, well, okay, fine. And it just makes Palpatine look a little thirsty. Like he's got to have Thrawn on his team, and he lays down like a couple, I need this and this, and Thrawn says no and no, and Palpatine says okay, fine.
Maybe Palpatine is just really, really dehydrated, and Thrawn looks like a Gatorade.
He does look like, I believe it's Arctic Blast is the shade.
Yes.
I think Arctic Blast is one of the light colored ones. I would go with the Night Elf Blue Mountain Dew from the World of Warcraft Mountain Dew promotion. That's the color, I think.
Nice.
Oh goodness.
Well, I think I laugh a lot about how I tend to dislike popular characters like Thrawn and Revan and stuff. I don't do it just to be a jerk and not like the things that people like. I think he's an interesting
Gen X contrarian.
I just don't like how they matched him up against Vader, and I don't like that the same people who think that Rey is overpowered because she can swim are okay with Thrawn being an absolute Sherlock Holmes, unstoppable, undefeatable, no threat ever touches him, juggernaut. And we don't, to my knowledge, we never see Thrawn's training. We never see him coming up. We just see him like he's already invincible from the day we beat him.
Yeah.
So, and which is not to say that Rey is not overpowered, but if we're going to be mad that she doesn't drown halfway through The Last Jedi, can we be a little bit mad that Thrawn learns Galactic Basic in a weekend and then moves on to basically take over the Imperial Navy? Maybe? I don't know. But as a military guy, Navy in particular, I like seeing an admiral in a main character role. I did enjoy reading the trilogy, but as with most things in Star Wars, if you have an emotional investment in one character, you're taking a risk looking at anything that doesn't deal with that one character, right? What am I complaining about? The way he talks to Vader, the way he talks to Palpatine. Well, maybe if I didn't care so much about Palpatine, I could appreciate Thrawn more, and that's what I try to do.
That's fair.
Fair enough. Yeah.
And I think we pretty much, between last week's discussion where we spent a lot of time on Thrawn and this week, I think we pretty much we've exhausted what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So jumping in, since we've been talking a lot about the books, next week our episode is our favorite Star Wars book. So, yeah. So pick one title that you guys really, 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 really like, and we'll share next week.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right.
And it's not Darth Plagueis. I mean, that is my favorite, but I've talked about Darth Plagueis enough, I think. I've got another one.
Which, for those of you who missed this last Saturday, I had a brand new episode of The Right Way come out. Brian was featured as my top 10 recommendations guest host, and I believe Darth Plagueis was your number one pick.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm about to say, was it number 1, Darth Plagueis, number 2, Darth Plagueis, number 3, Darth Plagueis?
No, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't that bad.
Number 3 was the 3rd chapter of Darth Plagueis.
Yes.
No, I covered the map. I touched on some legends and some new canon.
Yeah.
Mostly new canon.
It was. I think it was a pretty well balanced selection of books.
Okay, cool.
That was a great show too. The trouble that I have with a lot of the pre-Disney books is there was no continuity editor. There was no like, oh wait, you can't say that because this, which is how we end up with things like Han and Leia getting married twice in 2 different books.
Right.
And it's not the same wedding told 2 different ways. It's a totally different thing.
Yeah.
And we've touched on that previously. So I read a lot of those old Star Wars novels, but I read them like in airports and aboard ship. It's just like, well, I'm not going to read another Clive Kusler book in the barracks. Let's go ahead and just check this out. But I've paid more attention to the new canon novels and comic books because there is more of a sense of continuity. There's one story being told across a number of media.
Yeah.
All right. So Brian, where can people find you?
Find me on Facebook at the Sith Library and Archives, a lovingly curated collection of art, culture, humor, and whatnot dealing with the dark side. If they're the bad guys, we're there.
Awesome.
Oh.
As for me, you guys can find me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my books, The Archives of Sync Ran, as well as my newest one, Midnight Playground, a collection of short stories. You can also connect with me on YouTube, where I have a show called The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips. If you're wanting to get caught up on the book recommendations that Brian made, the replay of that segment will be dropping. Actually, it's dropped today, since today is we're recording this for Wednesday. So yes, on Wednesday that episode or that segment will be back. And then we'll be doing another episode of Snackame here in the next couple of weeks. And we are going to be focusing on the first 6 episodes or so of Delicious in Dungeon.
All right. As for us right here at War of the Stars, if you want to get a hold of us, you can do so through our email. That is warofthestars1@gmail.com. All of the social media, Instagram, X, YouTube, you can find on War of the Stars. Check us out on Spotify. Just search War of the Stars. We're going to be dropping new episodes here coming up soon. We're going to get back to doing that. So if you want to check us out on audio form only, if you don't want to look at our beautiful, handsome faces, you can do that there. Just like I said, just go to Spotify and check us out there. We are, of course, a proud member of Feast of Fandoms. Check us out at feastoffandoms.com or on YouTube at Feast of Fandoms. If you want to support the show, doing this all backwards, I know, but sorry. Ko-fi.com /War of the Stars. That is ko-fi.com /World of Stars. All one word, War of the Stars. Or you can support us by going to our shirt shop, spreadshirt.com /shop /war-of-the-stars-. We're going to be working on getting some new merch out here. Got a couple of new designs out that I'm going to be working on getting up on the site, and also making the site. I've been working on trying to get the site more streamlined with the wordage there. But that will do it for us right now. Thanks for listening or watching. And as always, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.